there was some rules in that kind of book, those kinds of books, but this one's a full rule book and kind of almost an update to our player's handbook, which is pretty neat. Off the top,
which is wild because I've only been playing in 5e. Obviously, you played a couple different editions. I've only been playing in 5e. I've only ever had the player's handbook and Xanthar's whatever guide as well. So like these books were kind of just there when I started, and the only books that have come out since then are campaign books.
Yeah. I mean, it's something. I mean, you have your core rule books, right, which are always going to be your core, your player's handbook, your DM's guide, and your monster manual. But your Volo's Guide to Monsters, Mordenkainen's. I mean, those are just some new ancestry races. There's new subclasses. Sometimes there's new classes. I mean, that's some real meat in there,
right,
that you can use.
Before we get into the meat, who's Tasha?
So Tasha is it's based off of a kid who actually drew in crayon a little letter to Gary Gygax way back in the day. And he used that name Tasha to create Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which is a spell that's been in D&D since the first edition. And it's actually kind of a little dark, however, because the character Tasha in D&D is actually a pseudonym for evil wizard. I think it's like, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Iggwilx or something like that. Like it's, I don't know.
I'm not going to attempt it.
It's a demonic name is what it is.
Right.
The character's very focused around, raising demons and making deals with devils and that kind of stuff. She was an evil character who kind of became Tasha in a group of campaigners back, in the settings of, first and second edition. But she's, super powerful, right? She's, birthed demigods and made crazy deals with the devil and stuff.
That's not where I thought.
She has Tasha's Hideous Laughter named after her, which is an incredible spell.
That's not where I thought you were going when you started off with it was named after a girl who wrote a little girl who wrote a letter to Gary Gygax in crayon.
Yeah, it took a weird turn after that, but it was the 70s, I guess. So yeah, you mentioned that there was a bunch of new subclasses and everything as well, which is super cool. I think one of them that was featured there last week or 2 weeks ago is one that I'm really interested in. It was a Necromancer Warlock, I think, was it? Yeah, and it's not confirmed that that's in there, but it's very likely. If any of you guys follow the Unearthed Arcana stuff that D&D puts out, it's very likely that all those you've seen come out in the last while, like that Necromancer one, will very likely be in this book.
I'm super stoked about it because I made a homebrew Necromancer.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. The one I'm the most stoked about is actually a Warlock. A Warlock subclass. It's for a genie patron. And basically, you pick your own genie. You kind of get to homebrew like what vessel, like your lamp, and kind of carry around your lamp with you. And it gives you abilities. Like eventually, it'll give the Warlock the wish spell, which is insane. I mean, usually that's reserved for wizards, sorcerers, and some bards. So another avenue for your players to get that spell is just
the DM in your
awesome,
prize,
in my opinion. Well, yeah, it's a trick, right?
Yeah.
There's some other cool stuff though. Like, I mean, there's a whole pile of new spells, new magic items. There's rules for magic tattoos, which if you're watching Critical Role, I don't know if they're taking that idea from Matt Mercer, but he has a rule set for you crush gems and you use the gem dust to like tattoo like stat increases.
That's pretty
so
cool.
I don't know if that's going to be the same, but like when I think magic tattoos, like who knows?
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
And then they're going to have rules for like sidekicks and stuff, which is nothing they really had before. Like right now, if you want a sidekick, you kind of got to make another player, which is, anyone who's played D&D, I mean, those character sheets get pretty intense. And, running a whole second character can be tricky.
So could you realistically with the tattoos, magic tattoos aspect or a condition or whatever it's called, just like go to a tattoo parlor every single town that you go in and just get new tattoos and get new stuff you can do?
It would depend on your DM. But I imagine they'll put in some sort of attunement system.
I 100% would get multiple tattoos.
I'm sure you would.
Don't.
Another cool idea, and this is something we kind of do in our campaign, is I think it was in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, the Magic the Gathering campaign guide. They had this idea about group patrons, and not in the idea of like a warlock patron, but almost like a company. Like if you work for a thieves guild, or if you work for a company of mercenaries, that if your whole party decided, we all want to work for this one group of people, this book is going to lay out some benefits that your DM could give you for doing that.
Right.
Like some people you could go ask questions to, some like some sidekicks, easy ways to get quests, kind of direction, give you a spot to stay for the night in towns, travel, I don't know, could be anything. It's neat. Anything that kind of, obviously you could homebrew these things, but anything that kind of gives you some more, hard rules, take some of the guessing out of it, right?
So would it still be similar to the warlock patrons where they're like, the majority of them are pretty evil and kind of want to take over the world?
No, I mean, they could be good or evil. I mean, I don't think the alignment would matter, but they would certainly be demanding.
Right.
If you want to work for the paladin of whoever, lawful good, I mean, they're probably going to want you to go spread some good in the world, right?
Could you maybe have a genie group patron?
I don't see why not.
That'd be pretty cool. Just carry him around your party all the time.
Wish spells for everybody.
Right.
But the coolest thing, I think, though, and this is going to be the biggest, they've already said this is the biggest kind of chapter of this book, right, is they're kind of moving away from calling the races. They're moving into calling them ancestries. And in that light, right now, when you make a character, your race has specific plus and minus stats. So, a dwarf is always going to be stronger and have more constitution. Your elf is always going to be more wise and maybe dexterous. But getting rid of that in Tasha's Cauldron and everything, there's going to be an Ancestry Tree. So you make your dwarf, but you follow this tree, and theoretically, and we're not sure the details yet, like you can make a dwarf with elven traits. Like, why not?
That would just ruin your entire life.
Yeah, I would. I'm fundamentally against it. But
as somebody who loves dwarves and hates elves.
Well, but I mean, you could do some cool stuff. Like, why not have a halfling that has the Goliath or the orc, last stand ability? You know what I mean? When you get to that 1 hit point, or 0 hit points, you get a chance to pop back up to 1. Like, why couldn't you be that halfling that trained as a barbarian?
I mean, I think it opens everything up, right? Which is kind of cool, because beforehand you couldn't do any of this, right? You couldn't. Anything couldn't be anything. Right,
and it made your choices a little bit harder, because if you wanted to be a wizard dwarf, for example, it was a wizard, you want intelligence, but the only way you can get intelligence stat is to be a gnome. Like, what if I don't want to be a gnome? What if I want to be an orc? Right. Why can't it be a smart orc?
Yeah.
Not all orcs are equal.
Right.
They're not. It's not like the faceless crowd at the Battle of Isengard.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, and you look at, obviously World of Warcraft isn't D&D, but there's a lot of very, very smart orcs in that universe as well. So I think it kind of makes sense. So
yeah. My personal hope, this is fingers crossed for this one, is that you can make a Tortollan with Aarakocra wings. Like a flying turtle would be the coolest thing. Like, I don't think that's how it's going to work, but like, fingers crossed for flying turtles.
I'd be down with a flying turtle. Just out of the humor. That'd be amazing. As a DM, would you allow it, or?
Oh yeah, why not? It's a magical world, man. Turtles could have wings. I don't know. Grew up with ducks or something.
Fair enough. As long as pigs don't have wings. So that's the news for this week, or the last couple weeks, actually, seeing as we just started and we haven't had a news section yet. There's a ton of news that kind of came out over the last little while, but that was the most recent one. And it's going to pretty much change people's, you know, can change how people play. So we decided to focus on that one there for this week.